What about quarterback changes? I mean, Brady clearly seems to be at the end of his Tampa stay if he wants to stay in it. And then that would present quite an option for anybody that wants to just go all in for 1 year or 2 years. You got Baker, who you had a fascinating article about how Sean McVay got him up to speed and just threw him in the deep end. I have no idea about Stafford's long-term plan, if he's healthy enough or not. I mean, what's your ear to the ground on quarterbacks that might change in the NFL?
Yeah, so I mean, I think with Tom is going to be an interesting one. I don't think he knows whether or not he's going to play in 2023 yet. I think if he does, it probably won't be in Tampa. And I think the two teams to watch there are San Francisco and Las Vegas. I think one of the things he probably has a better appreciation for is the way he was coached in New England, how hard he was coached in New England, and how tight the operation was. And so, he's got great respect for Kyle Shanahan, and the Niners have sort of kept that door open consistently over the last couple of years after they decided not to pursue him in 2020. So I certainly think that could be possible, depending on how the rest of the Niners season goes and where they're at on Trey Lance. Vegas has an important decision to make on Derek Carr. They're in his contract. If he's on the roster, I think it's 3 days after the Super Bowl, then $40 million in that deal vests and becomes fully guaranteed. So if they're going to move on from him, they have to make that decision in mid-February. So we'll know relatively soon on that. And, the Raiders, obviously, with Josh McDaniels there, would have the option of not one but two guys with Patriot background in Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo that could be available to them. And then, you mentioned the Rams and Stafford. I've never gotten the sense that Matthew's a guy who's going to hang around into his 40s. I just don't think that that's who he is. He's made his money. He's got his ring, and he's pretty beat up. Now, do I think he wants to go out like this? No. But I know the arm thing has lingered, and, now you've got the concussion issue. And, again, this is a guy who's just taken a lot of hits. I mean, one of the tougher guys in the NFL. He's taken a lot of hits and a lot of damage on his body. And you just wonder with him, does it come to a point where you're like, okay, I've accomplished what I want to accomplish. It's time to go live the rest of my life. I certainly could see that being in play for him at the very least. And, I think that's why, the way the Rams look at it, Baker Mayfield's sort of their first swing at, how would we eventually replace Matthew Stafford whenever he is to walk away. I think the people in that organization know, sometimes you have to take more than one swing to get it right. So I think when they claimed Baker off of waivers, this is a worthy swing, just taking a swing at a guy who's the first overall pick a few years back, has over 40 NFL starts under his belt, and has a good scheme fit for what we're trying to do.
And then I guess, with the next game being San Francisco and Seattle, if, in Munich, when I was there about a month ago, the idea of Geno being the long-term answer there for Seattle was absolutely, in my mind, a distinct possibility. And, obviously this is a knee-jerk thing to say, but you take a look right now at the NFC playoff picture, and the Seahawks are now on the outside looking in, and the draft choice that they get for Russell Wilson is now second overall. I mean, how is that all playing out? So they could pretty much have most any quarterback they want in the draft now, if this is the way.
Wild.
I mean, the next weeks are really crucial.
Detroit has the Rams pick.
Right.
Everyone thought that was going to be low 20s, early 30s.
Right.
And they're going to have a top 5 pick also, I think Seattle. I think Seattle's going to make an effort to keep Geno. And I think the right way to look at this, and I probably brought this like example up in the past to you. It's sort of like how I think the Vikings have handled Kirk Cousins, how the Raiders handled Derek Carr. When Josh and Dave Ziegler got there last year. I think the Seahawks sort of view Geno as like this could be like what Alex Smith was for Andy Reid in Kansas City, where Alex put them in a position to compete on a year-to-year basis, build up the rest of the roster, and they never had to force anything on a quarterback that maybe they weren't sold on. And it allowed them to be patient until they found somebody that they were really in love with in the draft, and that wound up being Patrick Mahomes. And so, I think that's sort of the way Seattle views it is we can sign him to maybe a 3, 4, 5-year deal, whatever it is, and he can be our bridge quarterback to get us to the next guy. And then I think you go into the draft, and I think on this group, like Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, there's going to be a ton of disagreement. And I don't think any of those guys is a perfect prospect. So you're going to have to work around some things and say, whose flaws am I most comfortable with? Or do I want to wait for a year, get a really good player at the top of the draft, and then maybe dive back in next year when you could have Caleb Williams, Drake May, Quinn Ewers, and I'll help you out here, and J.J. McCarthy potentially, right, going into the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's one of those things where if you can re-sign a guy like Geno, it gives you a chance to kind of take a multiple-year look at finding the right young quarterback to go all in on.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.